Hello everyone, good morning. Welcome to day 3 of the Guided Mindset for Therapists for the new year live series. This is probably going to be my favorite day. I love talking about this stuff. Okay, so I'm finding my people, finding Facebook and Instagram. The cameras are in slightly different places again today. All right, so let's just go right into it. The last couple days we've talked about the first 4 parts of this practice. The first part is celebrations, brags, hello, welcome. So really just celebrating, bragging about anything big or small, it really doesn't matter. The point is just to get into the practice of enjoying, of savoring what you have, even though we know that it's not necessarily the end game. You know, you can celebrate what you have and have goals that are beyond that. We don't want, those aren't mutually exclusive, and in fact, when we celebrate what we have, we're more likely to get our goals. Okay, so celebrations, brags, then gratitude. So just listing everything you can possibly think of that you are grateful for. Then we start listing out our desires, what our wants are, and we're really, we don't hold back when we do this part. When we're listing our desires, we literally just write down every single thing that we can think of, things that feel extravagant, things that feel impossible, incompatible with each other. Like maybe you're like, I want to live in this city and I want to live out kind of in the mountains somewhere. And you're like, well, I can't have both of those things. Or maybe it's like, I don't know, what could feel edgy or far-fetched for a therapist. Like, I don't know, I was working with some of my clients the other day and they both love doing 30-minute sessions. That's not typical for us, but you know what? Maybe that's something that they want to do. And what if they got to just start writing that down every day? You know, I'd like to have a practice where my sessions are 30 minutes and people get tons of value out of it, where 30-minute sessions are just really, really effective. Okay, let's explore that idea. Let's not cut ourselves off before we even get to the desire. Okay, so that's the third part. The fourth part is just kind of putting your to-do list on a piece of paper. Write out what you have to do, then narrow it down, delegate things that you can delegate, schedule things for later that you can schedule for later. Just get really clear on what exactly needs to happen today, and always make sure that you're including pleasure. Because if you want to move fast in your business, you want to make big changes and not have it take forever, the way to do that is to have pleasure be a right and not a privilege. You integrate pleasure every single day. It's not just a payoff once you've met your goal. Like, sure, that can be the case. You can give yourself gifts. I do this when I'm doing practices like this, when I'm doing guided free practices for people, just to kind of make it more fun for myself, so that I get it's almost like I'm training myself like you would a dog, that it's like, if you do this thing that maybe is a little edgy and maybe is a little uncomfortable, I'm going to give you a treat. I'm going to reinforce that way you associate doing these things with it actually being really enjoyable. Whether or not it results in the thing you want it to result in, I'm still making sure that you're having fun along the way. So pleasure can be the sort of treat to reinforce us to do these harder things, but I also don't want it to just be a treat. Pleasure is something that we need to be actively bringing into our lives every day. It always does. It doesn't have to be like buying yourself an extravagant gift. It can be something really small, like someone that I follow talks about pleasure as being any time that we engage with our 5 senses. So any time that we just kind of sink into connecting with our 5 senses. And this is also, this is mirrored in a lot of mindfulness practices as well. Like, essentially that is mindfulness. That is a way of being mindful, is to just pay attention to what is happening right now by connecting with your 5 senses. All right. So we've covered the first 4 parts. Now we get into, like I said, what is my favorite part, which is fear. I sound so scary. No, fear is probably the first. So I've learned bits and pieces of this practice over the years from different traditions. And the way I'm teaching it to you right now comes from all of those, including Julia Wells, who is kind of one of the more recent people I've been learning from. But this fear inventory is something I started doing years ago, and I wasn't doing it along with any of these other practices, and just this was incredibly transformative. It's also quite advanced. So I'm going to tell you a little bit. I'm going to tell you a way to work with this, but I want you to know there are even deeper, richer, more edgy, more advanced ways to work with these fears, but I don't have you in a container right now where I can really guide you through this step by step. So I'm going to give you something that feels like really safe to just go out and do on your own. And if you want more support getting into this deeper, then you know how to find me, right? You can reach out to me. All right, so the thing about fears is that our minds are pretty much constantly pumping out fears. It's what our brains do. It's actually not a problem. It's just the habit that our brains are in. And so rather than trying to avoid that, push it away, deny it, just wish it weren't there, we learn how to actively work with our fears, bring them to the light, and then transform them. So one of the ways is to use a sentence stem. And the original one that I learned is, I have fear that da 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 da. That's one sentence stem. And what you would do is you would write that sentence over and over and over again, filling in the blank. And you wouldn't make a run-on sentence. Every single time, you would be listing a new fear, you would write down that start of the sentence again. So I have fear that, I have fear that, I have fear that. So it might sound, if you're, what are some common therapist fears, right? I have fear that no one's gonna hire me. I have fear that if I raise my fees, then all my current clients will leave, and instead of making more money, I will make less money. I have fear that if I want to be as successful as I say I am, it's just gonna take an incredible amount of work. I have fear that I'll hate that. I have fear that I can't afford to get help to allow me to grow. I have fear that, you get the point. So this is what we do over and over again. And sometimes the fears get really out there. Sometimes they get really far away from this present moment, or even this particular circumstance or career. Sometimes fears go way into the past. Maybe we touch on something that is a really deep and old fear. Maybe we have fears that are actually exactly opposite. Like, I have fear that I'm not gonna make enough money. I have fear that I'm gonna make too much money and I won't know what to do with it. Like, that happens. Sometimes we have fears that are like opposed, and I always get a special kick out of that because I'm like, oh, my brain is so cute. It's just like literally afraid of everything. And I think the first time that happened for me, when I saw those fears be completely opposed to each other, it was like this light bulb went off and I was like, oh yeah, my brain truly is just pumping out fear. Like, this is literally nonsensical. Okay, that's the one sentence stem. The other sentence stem is, I resent blank because I have fear that da 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 da. So I resent blank. That blank can be a person, an institution, a circumstance. You just insert something there. I resent my partner because I have fear that if I go full-time in my practice, they might not support me. I resent my graduate program because I have fear that I will never be able to pay off my student loans, right? So these are the sentence stems. And just like the first one, we don't add and add and add and add. Every single time we're writing a fear, we write that initial sentence stem first. So this is a way of beginning to expose the fears to the light of day and to see them instead of just pushing them away. It's important when you're doing this fear inventory to have a way of signing off, have a way of releasing it, because we don't just want to like bring all these fears up and be like, well, that's great. Normally after doing this, I feel pretty, I could see a person doing this and then being like, oh no, I have all these fears. Like this is so heavy. I usually don't have that experience. Usually my experience is one of like relief almost, because it's not as if I didn't know these things before. Oftentimes they've been these pesky thoughts or half thoughts that are just sort of nagging at me. So when I finally do write them out, I actually feel quite relieved. Nonetheless, I think it's good practice to have a process in which you actively release the fear. So whether that's through writing something at the end that says like, here's the way I learned it. These are my fears. I'm ready to have them removed. Please remove them. Thank you. And because I learned this in the context of a tradition that has like a higher power concept, the particular language around that is, right, these are my fears. I'm ready to have them removed. Please remove them. Thank you. We pray only for knowledge of your will for us and the power to carry that out. That's going to work for some of you. It's not going to work for all of you. I encourage you to change it into something that feels really good. So however you connect spiritually, whether that's with something that's beyond you, whether that's with nature, whether that's the universe, whatever you want to call it, this idea of acknowledging that these are fears, saying you're ready to have them removed, asking that they're removed, thanking that they have been removed, and then asking for guidance, support from whatever your spiritual thing is. Like, I'm not gonna get specific because like it's totally up to you. And if you are listening to this and you're like, I don't really have any spiritual thing, I don't even know where to begin with that, that's okay. Honestly, you can make it up. You can make it up. It doesn't matter. Anything that is not you is okay. Basically, it's this idea that you're not actually doing it alone. Sometimes it's the collective. It's like a group of people where you're like, I'm turning this over to this group, or it might be your ancestors. It might be just imagining someone in your life who really loves you, or a group of people who really love you. It doesn't matter. The point is just have a process that you release. It could also, maybe it's not even words, it could be a movement. It could be that you light a candle when you start doing this inventory and then you snuff it out at the end, right? Just something to kind of seal the practice, release the fears is what we're going for here. Okay, so that was today's practice. Focus on doing the fear inventory. Best case scenario, you'll do steps 1 through 4 today, and you'll add in step 5 because we're basically just kind of like adding one thing after another, and then you'll build and you'll have the full practice by Friday. I'm going to just say one more thing today. So Liberated Business begins this Sunday, and I am so excited. The people who are in it are super pumped, and we want more of you because we don't want to keep all this fun to ourselves. And yeah, the cart technically closed last week, but if you want to sneak in, if you've been like on the edge and you're like, oh, I really want to do it, I have fear that blah, 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 right? Maybe that's something you can write in your fear inventory today. If you're feeling like this is something really edgy for you, there's probably something there to work through. And so, yeah, just let me know if you want in and we can figure it out. Sierra on Facebook is asking, do I do this every day? I don't know if you're talking about the fear inventory or if you're talking about this live series. I do not do this live series every day. The multi-step process. Yes. Usually I do it every day. There are some days that I miss it, but most days I do this entire process. Yeah, that is true. Also, if you have not already registered for this live series, I would encourage you to do so, because at the end of it, I'm gonna send you all like a guided journaling prompt, because I've been telling it to you this way the whole time, but you might like something you could actually like write in and look at. So make sure that you've registered. I'll drop the link is in my bio on Instagram, and I'll drop the link into this description on Facebook so you can do that. That way you can get all the information. All right, everybody, enjoy your day. I'll see you tomorrow morning.